Hello, Brubs. We're back with I Never Believed in Ghosts Until 100 Real Life Encounters, collected by the editors of USA Weekend. And I'm not sure which number story this is, but it's A Woman in the Well by Sarah M. Brangan. Let me turn this light on. Turn the light on. I'm 14 years old and not afraid of ghosts. I never have nightmares, and no one has ever accused me of having an overactive imagination. But I did have one experience that I can't explain. I have never told anyone about it, and I have never before written it down. I did, however, make a couple of brief entries in my diary. Believe it or not, I have kept a diary since I was 5 years old. The entries I made in August 1983, when I was 7, have given me the sequence of events for this account. We lived on top of a steep hill near a small town. Behind our house there were miles of woods and hills, then a line of trees where a hayfield started. It was a mile farther past that to the first back road. So you can see we lived way out in the country. We lived way out in the country, not a way out. Let me just read that whole paragraph again. We lived on top of a steep hill near a small town. Behind our house, there were miles of woods and hills, then a line of trees where a hayfield started. It was a mile farther past that to the first back road, so you can see we lived way out in the country, and it was scenic and quiet. My dad used to make a big deal out of taking my younger sister Emily and me for a hike. We would pack peanut butter crackers, sodas, potato chips, and whatever else we wanted into a backpack and set off out the back door into the woods. Dad would take a knife on his belt just in case. We also carried rusty penknives and a compass. We usually took a camera and a bag to collect things in. When we were about 50 feet into the woods, when we could no longer see our house, we might as well have been in the wilds of Alaska. Everything was interesting. We probably walked for about a quarter of a mile before we looked for a place to break out the food. After we had eaten, we would look for stuff. We would collect giant toadstools, feathers, acorns, special rocks, and items like that. Dad carried the bag. One day we realized we were in the middle of an apple orchard. There were apple trees all around and tons of apples on the ground. There were several kinds of other trees mixed in, and the apple trees looked old and not very healthy. We had been this way many times before, but had never noticed what was obviously an orchard. We hiked a little farther around the side of a steep hill and noticed a pipe running along the ground. It was an iron pipe, very rusty and kind of buried in the leaves, visible just here and there. It ran up the hill, more or less in the direction of where we had eaten our lunch. Dad made a game of tracing the pipe. He really didn't know what to make of it himself. We followed it down to the bottom of the hill, where it ended at a flat place. We saw nothing special there. Then it was time to go back. I guess we had been out for about an hour or so, and we followed the pipe back up the hill. Finally, we lost it again, but we continued to walk in the direction the pipe was pointing. Near the top of the hill, we came to a round pile of flat rocks about 2 feet high and about 6 feet in diameter. It was a well. The entire inside of the well was lined with flat stone, and it was deep. Dad said it was 15 feet deep, maybe more. If you looked over one side, you could see a reflection of your face way down there in the water. We dropped some stones into the water, and Dad took some pictures of our reflections. He said that an open well was dangerous, and he wondered why no one had covered it over. We sat on the edge of the well, one on either side of Dad, and finished the crackers and soda we had saved for the hike back. While I was eating, I looked down at my reflection and dropped small stones in the water to make rings. When the ripples stopped, my reflection would be crystal clear again. But one time it wasn't. When the water became calm, it wasn't myself that I saw looking up at me. I must have made a noise or a gasp because Dad looked at me and told me to be careful. And the flash went off. I looked back down, and there it was again. I looked at Emily. She was looking into the well, but she didn't seem very interested. I could tell that she was looking at her own reflection, but what I saw was an elderly woman. She had white frizzy hair, and she was extremely skinny. She had the kind of neck where the bones stick out. She looked content. I mean, she wasn't screaming or scary or anything. I looked around and saw that there was no reason for that reflection to be there. There was just the three of us. I looked back down. The woman was still there. Then I heard a voice in my head say, "You've got the same initials as I do, Sarah." Emily then dropped another stone into the well, and when the ripples stopped, the woman was gone. I think it must have happened pretty quickly. Maybe the whole thing took only a minute or so. I don't know for sure. I didn't drop any more stones into the well. In fact, I didn't look for the reflection again. I didn't say anything about the incident to anyone. At the time, I didn't think it was anything more than something unusual I saw on one of our hikes. A month later, I woke up for some reason during the night, and there she was again, the same woman. She was wearing a white apron, and in my head, I heard her say, "When you come back to visit me again, Sarah, be careful around the well." She was just standing there at the foot of my bed. Even though she didn't say so, I knew she was the owner of the wife of the owner of the orchard. Even after she had faded away, I could smell apples. She seemed at peace and kind, and I wasn't afraid. She might have been there for about a minute, and then she faded away. That was the last I ever saw of her. We never hiked in the direction of the well again, and about a year later we moved to another town not too far away. I guess there are ways to research just who owned the property years ago, and I know I will someday. I bet that someone with my initials lived there in a house that was torn down about 100 years ago. Maybe she knew what she was talking about when she told me to be careful by the well. Right. Right, says Mr. Peanut.